Here we go. Screen 3. Duh. All right. Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to our attendees, our regulars. I see like a bunch of familiar names, and appreciate you sticking with us in another virtual session of Ansible Nova. We are actually having our first meeting of 2021, I believe, our Q1. And typical Ansible Nova fashion, we're stacking up a couple meetings. We have this evening's a Hero as Code presentation we'll be getting into in a bit with Russell Pavlicek giving us that presentation. We also have another event. I don't think that we have actually clicked schedule in Meetup yet, but it is next week, the 25th, I think, and we've got a very special VIP, a celebrity in the world of Ansible and automation. That's as much as I'll say right now. So go to the Meetup group either later this evening or tomorrow, whenever Lizzie Glenzer is going to announce that for us. So let's get things going here. Thanks, everyone. Fierce Software. I'm Eric Updegrove. I'm our GM. There's some fierce personnel in the room with us. I mentioned Lizzie. I see Keenan's here. Chris Peters. Lizzie just dropped a free candy link in the chat. I see Steve Gamlin wearing his Fierce shirt. Good job. You get $1. Who are we? We're the small woman-owned value-added reseller. We're the corporate sponsor behind Ansible Nova. Ansible Nova, the largest dedicated Ansible community in North America. And that's meaning that we still have Ansible in our name. We haven't diverged or forked to Python meetup group, DevSecOps. We do all that stuff at Fierce Software, but this is our Ansible group. By our, I mean all of ours as a community, and we're keeping it that way. Here's a whole bunch of stuff on what we do. You can read it. You've been to our website. What do I want to plug? Okay, in sponsoring Ansible Nova, I'm allowed a commercial. This is what I want to draw attention to this month. fiercesw.com/shop/c/red-hat. Write that down. Red Hat training web store. And I'm sure if you are looking at these sorts of trainings and certifications, either professionally or for personal interest, we'd be very happy to set you up with a discount code. Don't pay MSRP. There are Red Hatters in the room that would confirm that statement. Don't pay MSRP. Go to a partner like Fierce Software. I think our code this month on the web store is REL8 is great. REL number 8 is great. That'll get you 15% off or something on Red Hat training. That's my plug. Let's see here. Normally in our agenda, we point to the bathrooms, we point to the pizza, beer, say, what our schedule is. We don't have any of that, but we do still like to set aside 5 minutes for job announcements. Okay. For example, Fierce Software is hiring sales positions right now. We're hiring business development associates and account executives. If you're interested, you have a friend that is in the field of sales, just give me a ping. I'll send you the link to those job listings. If there's anyone else whose company is hiring, rather than coming off mute and unmute or and sharing your screen, I might suggest let's put it in the chat. You see it in the top right, chat with everyone. I'll do a little job listings. There you go. So you should see the chat. You also see the free candy. Fill that out. We'll send you a new Fierce t-shirt. Steve Gamlin is modeling the 2020 variant. Feel free to sign up, and the free candy link will send you the 2021 version of the Fierce Software. Try thread count, triple weave, yada, yada. Thank you, Steve. Job announcements, and I also teased the upcoming session that is on 3/25 next week, and we do have a VIP joining us for that. Trust me, you're gonna want to see this. So we'll get that released this evening. Speaking of VIPs joining us at Ansible Nova, this is me handing the baton over to Russell Pavlicek, who was very gracious to join us. He is going to be presenting Hero as Code, and I guess I leave it at that, Russell. I don't want to give away any of your surprises for the presentation. Should take about 30 minutes or so. We'll go through, and then if we have Q&A afterwards, we'll hang out, just kind of do some chit chat for the remainder of the evening. That's my commercial. I'm going to stop sharing screen so that you may, Russell.
Yes, indeed.
Feel free to take it away.
And I am trying to, I'm hoping this will end up sharing the right thing. We'll find out.
Don't ask me. I messed it up 3 times.
Yeah, there you go. Now, the big question, you should hopefully be seeing a web page, but that's not what I want to show because I am difficult. Are you seeing the Hero as Code slide?
You're seeing Ansible documentation.
No, that's the wrong one. Great. I'm trying to do this with LibreOffice Impress, and sometimes Google Meet wants to do other things than what I want. So let's try sharing something a little differently. I'll stop presenting that. And what happens if I try to do, oh, okay, good. That should work now.
And Russ, we gotta get you on camera. This is such an animated presentation.
Oh,
I wish we were all in Tyson's or Reston together. This is such a good story. Still Ansible.docs though.
Yeah, it will be. Give me a second. As to why you want to see my face, I'm not sure. But how's that? Are we seeing Hero
as Code? Got it.
All righty. So wonderful. Now I know that you folks have nothing better to do tonight. I mean, it's St. Patrick's Day, and we know that technical people never go out and drink beer. So you got plenty of time to kill. So we're going to spend about 5 hours on this. Actually, no, we're going to keep it short and sweet. The story of Hero as Code is, I mean, it's real basic. If you are, and by the way, I'm kind of flying blind right now. I can't see the chat, so apologies for that because of the way I'm set up. So if people need to interrupt. But Hero as Code is a basic story. So if you're kind of semi-new to Ansible, it might be enlightening. If you are an Ansible old hat, but you have to somehow explain to people the value of Ansible, this is the story to learn, as far as I'm concerned. Very simple. So let's start with the basic notion of all, right? It's about systems thinking. And it doesn't matter whether you're in manufacturing, whether you're in IT. If you remember the book, The Phoenix Project, they talked about how they had to try to get stuff working, how to get things moving faster. That's what the basis of all this is about. And how do you do that? Well, you've got to find the bottleneck. And you got to find the bottleneck, and you have to optimize there. If you optimize at stuff that's going fast, your throughput is not going to be any better. You need to be able to find get stuff out of the backlog, get it into the work in progress. You got to find the bottleneck. So now I work for Red Hat, and we have some very bright people, and we have found through tremendous research what the problem is. I'm going to let you know. The problem is Bob. That's it. It's Bob. I mean, Bob, you know Bob. Every time you try to get something done, it's all about Bob. Oh, I need to get a new VM stood up. Oh, okay. Well, that's something that Bob will do, but unfortunately, he's real busy right now, so we'll put it in his pile. Oh, I need to get a VPN initialized. Oh, well, that's something that Bob's going to do, but you know, he's got all these other things, so we'll just get that inside his queue. Bob, you know Bob. Bob's the problem. We can't do anything without this Bob getting in the way. Bob's the problem. What are we going to do about it? Bob is slowing you down. But in fact, Bob is not the problem. How can Bob not be the problem? Bob's the one in the way, right? No, Bob is actually the hero. It's like, how can he be the hero? He's the one I can't get anything done with because we're waiting for Bob. Well, what does Bob actually do? Well, you know, he's the guy who specifies the server stack. So when you're putting things together, he's the one that says what's got to go into it. And then when you actually have to assemble it, he's the guy who actually builds the server, right? And then, oh gosh, you know, something busts, better call Bob. Bob's the guy who fixes it all. And then when you get that important thing, you know, that really, truly important thing, like the VP needs a laptop installed at the lake house, you call Bob. Bob, in fact, does everything. Bob's the hero. So, you know, what's the problem? We like heroes. I mean, if you've been Marvel Comics, DC Comics, heroes are great. Heroes are good. How do they go inside the comics? Well, you got your hero, and then the most important person in the world steps in the room and says, I need this now. What does the hero do? He says, here I come to save the day. Extra points. Who can say, what's that from? Come off mute.
Mighty Mouse.
Mouse. Very good. Now, 5 extra points. From where did Mighty Mouse get his superpowers? Ding! Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for playing our game. Mighty Mouse got his superpowers from eating cheese at a supermarket. Hey, what do you expect from the 1940s? Okay, I mean, you know, we should just do this. But that's great for comic books, right? But we're not talking about comic books. We're talking about real life. In real life, it's not the one most important person in the world. It's the 2 most important people in the world say, I need this now. But you only got one hero. But it's worse than that. Because we're not talking about real life. We're talking about IT. Oh, yeah. In IT, the 6 most important people in the world step in the room and say, I need this now. What's one hero going to do? But there are other problems with heroes. Like buses. Buses are very bad for heroes. I mean, think about it. Bob's finally getting on his lunch break. It's like probably 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right? He's been dealing with all this stuff. He goes out and he's got his phone and he's getting the email from the 7th most important person in the world. But he's looking down. He's trying to cross the road. He's not looking. Here comes the bus. Bus hits Bob. Bam! No hero. No work getting done. There are other problems with heroes too, like recruiters. Recruiters are real bad for heroes because, you know, recruiters, they hear you're a hero and they say, oh, Bob, we hear you're a hero, Bob. That's really great, Bob. You know what we like to do with our heroes, Bob? We like to give them money. Do you like money, Bob? We'd like to give you a lot of money. Would you like to have a lot of money and come along with us? And the recruiter takes Bob. Bob goes away. There's no Bob. There's no hero. There's no hero. There's no work getting done. So what do you do about this? Well, you know, if it's a problem with throughput, you could go to your boss and you can say, you know what the problem is? We're doing too much. We need to do less. So that'll take the pressure off of Bob. Now, of course, before you do that, you make sure that your resume is up to date as of 5 p.m. because you're going to be out on the street looking for a new job if you dare try to go to your boss and say, we need to do less, because everyone needs to do more. So the real problem is, how do we increase the throughput? Well, you know, in the world of automation, there is this concept of the hero as code. So we can take that knowledge of that hero, we can leverage the human experience, reduce the repetition, you know, get rid of the variability, and take that knowledge and turn it into code, repeatable code. And that's a nice concept, except we're talking about generally operations at this point. And operations people, a lot of them don't particularly want to code. If they wanted to code, they'd be in development, not operations. So how do we deal with that? Well, we've got a solution that's not hero as code, but hero as playbook. The difference between playbook and code is playbook is a definition of what the end state's got to look like. I mean, it's kind of like filling out a config file. And most operations people have no problem filling out a config file. But that's really the concept. So we can take a procedure and reduce it to playbooks. So we can install the operating system, add a web server, configure the software, very simple procedure, but we can reduce all of that to a playbook. And suddenly you've got your intent specified, you've got your policies being set up, it's architecture independent. It doesn't matter what the device type is or what vendor is involved. You can actually make all of that happen using a playbook. And then when you get to the life cycle, you can use that singular playbook to go throughout the software life cycle. So the developer, they write their code, and then historically they'll write a script that says this is how you install the code. They throw it over the wall to their testing people. The testing people say, well, this is great, we got this code, but this script doesn't match our environment, so we have to rewrite the script, or at least doctor it up a whole bunch, so that we can get it running in our test environment. And then they test it and they throw it over the wall to the QA people. The QA people say, well, we got the code, but this script matches the test environment, not the QA environment, so we got to rewrite this. So basically, you're constantly rewriting this script. And I have seen the situation where code has progressed all the way into production, but then fell apart in production because as they're translating the script from environment to environment, something got lost. And the thing fell over, and the problem wasn't even the code, it was the actual script. Well, with playbooks, we can actually go from environment to environment with the same playbook. Why? Because the playbook doesn't have the actual environment embedded into the playbook itself. That's externalized in what we call an inventory. So as you go from environment to environment, you can reuse that same playbook and just apply it to a different inventory. So it doesn't matter whether you're doing revision control or config management, you are actually going through the entire life cycle with the same playbook. Now, we can actually communicate with playbooks, and this is an important part of it, because you have different organizations within your organization, and each one has their own hero. Bob or Roberta or Bobito or Bibbledy Bobbledy Boo, whoever. Each group has their own champion, their own hero. I was in a customer a couple of years back, and you're saying, how long does it take you to spin up a VM? Well, it's like 3 weeks. It's like 3 weeks. It should take you a lot quicker to take. Well, yeah, but we have to go first to this group, and we have to get the requisition in for it, and then we got to wait for them, and then we have to go over to the networking group, and we have to get the connection set up there. Then we got to go over to this group, and so every group has their hero that they have to involve. But if you can take each one of these groups and put their parts together in playbooks, then the process of going through there and waiting for heroes can be literally reduced down. In this particular case, we went from, they said about 3 weeks to a matter of minutes. Literally, they can put in the request, go to the break room, get something, get a drink of water or some coffee or something, get back, and then they can start working with it. That's the power of working with Ansible, and it's all about starting small and thinking big, all this stuff. I'm not going to go into the full shebang stuff because you've probably heard most of this stuff before, but I just want to break at this point and move over to some things that maybe you've seen, maybe you haven't seen. And where is it? There we go. From current slide. Okay. You may have seen this before. This is the Ansible way. It's cross-platform. It's version controlled. It's human readable. It's got dynamic inventories, perfect description of the endpoint, and it plays well with others. And that's kind of the way we want to make things work. The 3 tenets of Ansible is it's simple, it's powerful, it's agentless. Now, the thing that, let me just move past these things. And And man, is this going slow. Okay, Playbook Examples. If you're an Ansible person and if you're working in a Linux environment, this is going to be very familiar, right? So I love to, ask people, it's like, if you're not a Linux head, what does this do? And it's like, it installs and starts Apache. It's like, yeah, how'd you know that? Well, because it says so. And one of the beauties of the way Ansible is constructed is that it's kind of self-documenting. It's kind of using the best concepts of what we would find in a script, but it's easier because instead of a bunch of if then else's, if you're not used to Ansible, you can see that we use the things called modules. You see, say in the middle there, you see yum, and then you've got a name, which is HTTPD, which is the Apache package state latest. So in other words, we're saying yum, which is the installation module for Red Hat Linux. So it's saying install the latest Apache. Well, if it's not there, it'll install it. If it's there and it's old, it will update it. If it's there and it's the latest, it'll do nothing. And that's kind of the brilliance of the way Ansible works with this. And I'm not going to spend too much. Oh, okay, we got the nice little breakdown in color. I don't know if you want me to go over that level of thing, because I got a feeling most of you probably know this, but let me flip over to something that you may or may not have seen, which is doing this with Windows. Yes, we do Windows. Great phrase. We do Windows. Last time I checked, I think we had a little bit north of 100 Windows-based modules. So if you're saying, or if you got someone saying, well, we've got Linux, but we've got a ton of Windows stuff, we can manage the Windows stuff just as easily. And if you notice, the construction is identical. It's just a question of using Windows-specific modules. And in this case, we're working with adding stuff into domain membership and whatnot. It's pretty straightforward. But that's not the end of it either, because we also have the same thing for network automation. I don't know how many people are actually using Ansibles in network automation, but this is a huge area for us. The Windows stuff's really taking off. Network automation has been huge for us because, we got software-defined networking out there in the great wide world, and you have a lot of networking vendors that have sold hardware. Well, what do they want to do? Well, they want the SDN style configuration. They want to be able to somehow programmatically work with their hardware so their hardware doesn't get thrown out and gets replaced by software-defined networking. Well, we can do that with Ansible. And the really wild thing here, of course, is that a lot of the modules you see are actually being developed by the company that's doing the networking hardware, because they see this as deliverance for them. They can give that SDN capability. So if you're not actually working with Ansible in your network area, this is a great potential. And I'll tell you, a lot of the network engineers I've worked with, I've got a massive amount of gray in my beard, and a lot of them, honestly, today are doing things almost the same way they did back when I was young and spry, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. They're SSHing into a server and issuing some commands and trying to remember what's the syntax for this particular Cisco or whatever it is. You don't have to deal with that if you're working with Ansible modules, and it becomes repeatable. And one of the guys I've worked with in the past, who was a network engineer, and came over to Red Hat working with Ansible, he was saying this is great because it changes the whole dynamic of when something breaks. Because he came from the era where something breaks, well, you have to go and you have to very hurriedly try to diagnose the failure and figure out what it was and fix it. He said, well, you don't have to do that. If you got playbooks that set up the machine, simply run the playbooks against the machine and put it all back the way it's supposed to. And if it actually is failing out on hardware, you throw another piece of hardware in its place and you run the playbooks against it. which is really neat because now they don't have to worry about wasting time diagnosing. It just becomes a question of applying it all over again. Really old slide, ships with over 3,400 modules. I think we're north of 4,000. You know, I mean, it's crazy. And I'll go here to the docs. If you haven't spent any time with Ansible, docs.ansible.com, fantastic resources because it contains all sorts of amazing things. Being open source, there's nothing that is proprietary in terms of documentation. You don't get any secret sauce, you know, that's being held back. The module index, likewise, if you haven't perused the module index, let me go over the network modules, for instance, you know, and then look at all the various things, and each one's broken down by various vendors, Big Switch and Checkpoint and Cloud Engine and so forth. So, I mean, you know, there's 10 tons of stuff out here. If you haven't wandered around docs.ansible.com, it is well worth it. If, and I'm just going to do this for sake of time because I'm trying to keep it all short for you. If you haven't gone into Ansible for Windows on my stupid little YouTube channel, I've got a demo called Ansible Tower for Windows, installing software, running stuff. It's a full demo of working with Ansible in the Windows environment. It's actually fairly neat. I was doing a demo for a customer, and I thought, well, you know, we don't have a lot of Ansible for Windows artifacts, so I just recorded it afterwards and just threw it out, let a few people know about it, walked away from it, and in a year's time, I've got 5,500 views, which is not bad for a little. I mean, this isn't on the Red Hat channel. This is just my stupid little channel, but obviously it's hitting a nerve. So if that's something you want to do, I would suggest you know, looking at that video. It does seem to help people out a lot. And then, of course, you got stuff like Ansible Galaxy, which is where the community comes together and donates all sorts of interesting playbooks and roles and so forth to get things done. At that point, I am going to, because we went about 30 minutes. I don't want to go too far. I don't know if there's any issues or questions, but I will.
Yeah, hey, Russ, we got a question in chat.
Sure.
How do you deal with the dev security operations networking, I think, fiefdoms, protection tendencies?
Yeah.
Need any more details from Glenn, or does that kick you off good?
No, I think I get it. You know, you can do so much with automation, but a lot of it still comes down to people. And I was just having this discussion, honestly, with another group a couple hours ago. But push comes to shove, if you don't have skills with people, you're going to have issues. And this is one, the fiefdom of networks, the fiefdom of data storage, because we can play with storage as well. The fiefdoms of all these things, or of there's the Linux group, and then there's the Windows group, and maybe there's the AIX group or whatever it is, you know, and everyone wants their territory. So inside some sense, you have to kind of sell and resell and resell. You know, for the people on the inside who are actually using it, if you're using it, let's say that you're using it on the Linux side of the house, but you want, you know the networking people could benefit from it. There's kind of a sales job that has to take place, and maybe it's you talking to a friend over there or whatever it is. But the bottom line, and this is kind of the beauty of Ansible among all the products that I work with, the best way to get people on board with Ansible is to get them to touch it. And that's one of the really neat things here, because if you're using Red Hat Linux, you have access to the Ansible Engine. For the sake of those folks who may not know, there is the basic engine, the thing that takes those playbooks and makes them work, and that is available with Red Hat Linux. There is another level called Tower, and tower becomes the administrative area that has a GUI, that has the thing that grants permissions for one role or another, one other person or another. So basically, the engine is fine if you're in a small shop or if you just want to play around. Once you start having multiple people doing multiple things, you really do want the tower. And then we've got the Ansible automation platform, which is a new thing, which is really powerful and is actually being fleshed out inside some ways. But that has a lot to do with sharing and setting up repositories for what is considered good for your organization. And so you can bless certain playbooks or certain roles to be used throughout the organization. But anyway, the bottom line, I would say, for working with, say, a networking group or the Windows group or whatever it is to try to get them to get enough interest to touch. And if they touch, like I said, that you can get the base level Ansible Engine is with Red Hat Linux. Most Linuxes these days have the Ansible Engine as well. It's just easily loadable, Ubuntu and so forth. You can just load it up and start mucking with it. And one of the beautiful things, like I said, particularly when you get into the networking world, they're so used to doing it the old way, and it takes them so much time that if you can get them to pay attention for just a few minutes, say, we can take a lot of that stuff that you really don't want to do anyway, but you got to do because you got to do it. We can get off your plate and make it so you don't have to worry about whether you typoed because it was 3 a.m. and people are screaming and they brought you in to fix something and you're kind of bleary-eyed. All you have to do is apply the playbook. So you don't have to worry about, did I fat finger something, whatever. You can get rid of that. And that's kind of, let's just say, when you're talking automation in general, I was at a conference a couple of years ago and I was speaking just as in a panel sort of situation. And one of the people there said, we had someone come in and talk about automation. And the big thing is they said, well, you can save headcount. You can reduce people through it. And so we didn't want to do it, because people don't want to lose their jobs. And I said, was that a Red Hat sales guy? It was like, no. It's like, I'm glad we should not have people that stupid in our sales organization because, like I said, the push come to shove, everyone needs to do more. So the question is, how do I do more? Not reduce headcount, for crying out freaking loud. So once again, with the networking people, it's like, how can you do more? Talking about things that are in the backlog inside that one of those early slides I did. I go into organization after organization and then said, okay, what do you got in your backlog? You got stuff that's been there for a year? Yep, we got stuff that's been there. 2 years? Yep. 3 years? Yep. What's keeping it there for 3 years? Well, we don't have time. Well, guess what? If you automate the garbage stuff, the stuff that's repeatable, suddenly you end up with time. Lots of time, potentially. And that's one of the empowering things. You really want to get that project done? Yeah, we really wish we could, but we just don't have time. Well, how about we make some time for you? How about we take the stuff that's grunt work that you didn't want to do anyway? I mean, think about it. For those of us who are been in the IT world one way or another, you go to school, you spend tons of money, you spend tons of time to learn stuff, only to have people, call you at 3 o'clock in the morning saying, if you don't fix this by 6, you're out of a job. You're firefighting. That wasn't part of what you'd hoped for. You want to get rid of that piece. You want to get rid of the grunt work and spend more time using your brain. And if you can automate the easy parts, then you can get that time. And that's the way I tend to approach the networking people, the Windows people as well. And yes, there's always a fiefdom thing, but once again, if you can show them that there is a value that's greater than their fear, kind of the bottom line, give them value greater than their fear. And they say, well, let's take a look at it. And if you can get them to touch it, chances are pretty good that you can also get them to just take it and work with it. I've seen a few things flow in the chat. They've kind of rolled past me. Let me see if I can find them. Let's see. Highlander Tech. Bobs need the skill. There can be only one playbook. Made, approved. Yeah. Yeah. So once again, for the people who want to be the hero, right? I mean, that's their identity. I am the hero. Come to me. Well, they can be the hero who provides the playbook. They do the blessed work, and I think Stephen talks about that. You can put it right, that they don't lose their position. That's kind of a real important thing. Like I said, people are afraid of losing their job or whatever. But if you can show them that it's not about losing your job by any means, in fact, it's making your job better because you're taking the grunt stuff off your plate. Do the interesting stuff. We went through our training, our school, whatever it was, so we could do the interesting stuff, not so we can be fighting fires 7x24. At least, I mean, I suppose there's a few people who do that, but most people, they want something better, and we can give them better. My old company called that the bus factor, the number of people who can get hit by a bus before the knowledge is lost to the company. Yeah. Right. So, that's kind of the key to this. And the hero doesn't need to cease being the hero. It's just that the hero's output is slightly different than it was before. The hero is the one producing the actual playbooks, the one who's blessing the playbooks, who's coming up with that, but is also working on the interesting projects now. I mean, once you get that into their heads, you've got time to do something interesting now. Those things that are sitting in the backlog you've been wishing you could do for 3 years, ramp them up. Get started. Automate yourself out of a job so you can do the cool stuff. Yeah, well, I don't know if I would use the term out of a job, but at least out of mundane tasks, out of the 3 a.m. phone calls, out of the yelling and screaming, you can get rid of all that. So anything else that I'm ignoring Mark Anderson because I have to. But like I said, pretty basic stuff maybe, but hopefully give you something to think about.
Well, thank you, Russ. Really appreciate you coming out. I even thought it might be appropriate to leave Mjolnir here on my desk after that rousing presentation. I can lift it too. So
there you go.
Just saying. Unless we had any more questions from the chat, anyone wants to unmute, make an announcement to your fellow Ansible Novians, giving this the speak now or for 8 days, hold your peace, pause. All right. Well, I know that it's St. Patty's Day, so let's take the extra couple minutes for ourselves. Thank you again to Russ. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening, taking time out of your personal schedules. Really do appreciate that. Drop us a line at redhat@fiercesw.com if you ever need anything. Some of you signed up for the free candy, so we'll make sure we get that shipped out to you. Fierce software representative will be in touch for your mailing address. Keep an eye out on Ansible Nova on Meetup. As I've said multiple times this evening, VIP in the world of Ansible joining us next week. We will be making that announcement this evening. And I wish you all well and a very happy and safe St. Patty's Day. Thanks, everyone. See you next week, hopefully.
Thanks, Eric. And thanks for the talk, Russ. It was awesome.